In today's video, I'm making a $600 luxury version of the standard brown paper bag. Stay tuned throughout the rest of the video to see how you can win one of these for free for yourself. Okay, so I get this bag suggested to me on Instagram from a brand called Bukuro. It's essentially a nubuck version of your standard brown paper bag, and I just had to have one for myself. This kami bag by Bukuro, kami being Japanese for paper, is beautiful, and it would dress up a lot better than the current tote bag that I carry around. This is the one that I normally carry around. It's this gigantic jumbo tote from Made Bob. It says Kansas City on the side. I love it, but it is it's huge, and it doesn't always do the job for me. But listed at nearly $600 and with no internal pockets, I knew I could custom make my own for much cheaper. I've been watching Hans Atelier and Mospoke on YouTube for so many years now. I have pattern making and leather sewing experience from shoes I've crafted, so I feel pretty well empowered to do it myself and to make some improvements on the design. But before I invest in this project, I need to understand what problems the design solves and then analyze and harmonize those needs into the categories of form and function. Y'all can't see, but I have my iPad right here. So the problems of my current situation are, my current tote bag can't be dressed up to match the nicer modes in my personal style. This kami bag has the quality that I want, but is way too expensive. And lastly, in my current tote bag, and if I were to invest in this kami bag, my stuff would still just roll around loose on the inside, and so I need some organization with that. So when we consider these problems and find a solution that balances form and function, we get an elevated form that looks beautiful, fits consumer needs of organization and personal style, and by consumer, I mean me as well as anybody else that happens to vibe with my personal tastes, and handmade quality, but not at the expense of a $600 fee. Hope you all enjoy that little exercise. It's a little design freebie for you. This original bag has really similar dimensions to another tote bag that I own, so I reference this a lot when trying to get the custom width and handle measurements. All the measurements I needed were listed on the product description on the website, and so for the elements like the handles and the dimensions of the chiseled edge that weren't mentioned, I created whatever looked proportionate. With a pattern like this, you can save on paper by cutting the extra components out of this main piece since we're only tracing the outline for it. And I've made registration marks here within the longer piece that folds over the bottom for the shorter piece that will attach on the other side since each side is not the same length.
What?
Hey everyone, just Hudson from the future here. I'm editing the video. That made no sense. It seemed like it made sense when I was writing it, but when I was hearing it for the first time editing, I realized it made zero sense. So essentially all I was trying to say was, instead of cutting two big pieces for your pattern for the sides, you can just cut the longer one, and on that longer one, put notches at the according length for where you're supposed to cut the shorter piece as well. It's much simpler when I put it like that. So that's all I was trying to say. Back to the video. As I was thinking about making this bag, part of me wondered why a simple bag like this was worth making with so much quality and intention. In the book Art Needs No Justification, Hans Rookmaaker dives into this idea of how the Industrial Revolution quaked a fault line between typical work trades and what we now today call fine art, where there previously wasn't such a harsh distinction. Even while writing this book into his passing in the 1970s, he leads the reader to additionally see how the West's unyielding pursuit of industry has actually distorted the religious practices and social imaginary of the church. But I'm not going to get into that right now. Rookmaaker's argument shows us historically that the more that the trades and art were segregated, the more things were created not for beauty and longevity, but for maximizing profits and efficiency. He therefore focuses primarily on reviving a theology of beauty, unburdened and untethered to this hyper-pragmatic, utilitarian focus, essentially beauty getting to exist for its own sake. Reasoning with the reader then to see the societal and most importantly the spiritual benefits of purposeless creation that doesn't particularly function. He actually begs that unity and artistry between industrial creation and more traditional artistic creation be reinstated. And as a byproduct of this framework, functionless beauty and beauty then applied to functionable items both become worthwhile reasons for making. Now, it's important to discern what I'm not saying here. I in no way intend to communicate that because something is cheap or simple or mass-produced that it's not meaningful or it can't be meaningful, or that something needs to be ornate in order to be considered creatively or beautifully designed. That goes directly against my creative philosophy. The Iron Snail actually made a great video about this that I linked below in the card about how this decline in craftsmanship is actually seen within the apparel and textile industries. But stats aside, we have all experienced this with how often we need to replace things, and with that, production of goods nowadays is primarily driven not for craftsmanship, but to simply cut costs and make more money. Fewer and fewer heirloom level items exist to be passed down, which formerly became more beautiful as they'd patina with age. Now, I definitely don't think that these paper bags were made out of malicious intent. I think we genuinely could not have seen the effect that single-use items like this would have on the environment as they compounded over time by those who would abuse their convenience. I find it really ironic that this kami bag from Bukuro wouldn't even exist in its current status without this progressive industrial decline in craftsmanship. The fact that the brown paper grocery sack exists to begin with was to push higher consumer convenience, and with that, higher consumer spending. Something that for decades has been single-use and at best recycled is now the subject of elevated fashion accessory design. It's almost become a paradox in this form. Elevated object diminishes, single-use object becomes commonplace, single-use object becomes cultural staple, elevated form returns but in the form of single-use object. It's really a weird phenomena to observe. I do think it's important to highlight here that this bag being raised to this sort of pedestal is in fact a testament to the effectiveness of its design. Just because the bag was initially made of paper and mass-produced doesn't in any way detract from the simple beauty and the function of the form. I mean, they kept making these bags over decades for a reason, and that's because from a functional standpoint, the design performed. They folded and stored nicely, they were reusable to an extent, and they held stuff exactly what they were intended to do. I really resent the notion that modern or minimalist design is void of beauty because the general assumption is that the creator didn't have to quote-unquote try as hard as someone who made something ornate or detailed. When in reality, as any seasoned maker knows, to reduce something down to its simplest form or a more simple form and still create something that is captivating or breathtaking takes an enormous, if not the most amount of knowledge of the original subject matter to begin with. The deeper a creator's knowledge of what the rules are, the more solutions he can come up with within its boundaries. And even going beyond that, the more solutions he can generate, the more diversely he can communicate through his medium. One of the reasons that I love design and fashion and footwear is because something made with creative quality and intention, regardless of whether the form is minimal or ornate, can become a vessel of meaning in our memories. Its identity can essentially transcend its physical form. I remember the first pair of sneakers that I ever handcrafted, these Air Jordans, I broke out for the first time at my youngest sister's graduation. Not only did these signify a giant leap forward in my journey as an artist and a designer, but these shoes have accompanied me to so many significant events, and their value now goes so much further beyond their materiality or monetary value. We realize in this space that the things that we own, the things that we make to give to other people, or the other things that people have given to us, over time become less and less about the thing itself and blossom more into a symbol of meaning and memory and the relationship, which the item didn't initially hold when we first gave or received it. But that's an abstract that requires a deliberate choice and perspective, that ultimately in every person's universal search for meaning, the capital then in creation and even life itself isn't actually centered on output or things, but relationships. For those of us who tend to put life's value in our accomplishments, life is not about the quantity of what we are outputting, but the quality of what we output. Objects then are only the shadow of meaning, what they point us to, what they remind us of, the memory, the relationship, the meaning. That's the true substance. Under this lens, if given the introspection, our motives for making, whether that's artistically or what we're trying to make with our lives, quickly become confronted on whether beauty or integrity or relationship factor into our desires at all. And if you're similar to me, it'll show you that what you're actually wanting out of love and life and relationships is probably being projected onto your work and the things that you own. Owning this bag cannot fulfill my internal need for companionship and beauty and reliability, but owning it can, through its function to me, remind me in these areas how I can be a source of beautiful reliability for other people. At best, it's a metaphor, and at other times, it's just a cool bag, and it's not that deep. And both of those are equally justifiable reasons for making it. After making this pattern in the bag itself, I definitely get why it's priced at nearly $600. It could probably be priced even higher when factoring in the labor it takes to make one. So, oh gosh, I knocked that over. In the spirit of instituting more beautiful, intentional design into the world, I'm giving away this bag as well as one copy of Art Needs No Justification for free. A copy of this book or this beautiful gray nubuck bag lined with black suede could be yours. And all you need to do to enter is, first, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I mean, personally, I think we've really hit it off these last 9 minutes together, so you should just subscribe anyways. Step number 2, like this video and comment down below with major bag alert and specify whether you're entering for the bag or the book or for either. Hopefully someone gets that reference.
Major bag alert, major bag alert, major.
For an additional 2 entries, share this giveaway announcement reel from my Instagram page to your Instagram stories, and be sure to tag me at Hudson Taylor Art in your post just to make sure that I see it. My channel's not very big, so your chances of winning are really solid. The winners will be selected at random announce via my Instagram story and will receive a DM or comment reply from my page specifically. If you don't want to win these for yourself, enter to win and give it to someone you know. See the description below for the full rules and geographical restrictions. This bag is thick and hefty, and I am so stoked to be giving away one of my creations. This book also has just become a cornerstone in my creative philosophy. If you're curious about any of the other creative resources that I've benefited from that I'd recommend, they're all available in a categorized list that's constantly being added to and updated on my website. The link for that is also down in the description. Okay, now that we have finished the announcement, we can finally get on to the final reveal. I'm super excited for you guys to see how the bag turned out.